It's kind of the top of the path, we might say. And it goes all the way through. We're cultivated from the beginning. It's very important. So that's obviously an important thing. So this other quality, so hopefully you might realize that part of the way I'm doing this, at least, is like, what have I been doing recently? What have I been looking into? Because the Buddha gives you a infinite buffet kind of not infinite, but huge. There's a lot of teachings, especially as a monk, and especially maybe as a monk who's a lay person for a long time practicing. You can pick up anything. Teachings for lay people, teachings in terms of what I might try and communicate. So actually, this kind of counterpoint, maybe, I think it's a bit of a counterpoint. It's another aspect of the path that works in harmony with equanimity, but is maybe it's kind of what you call it? It's like it's a sibling, Well, it's not a sibling, but they're kind of, you could see them as opposite, or not in harmony, but they're definitely in harmony. Is more about like aspiration or desire. Desire, the big baddie, apparently, right? Desire, bad. You don't want desire, bad thing. It's going to cause all kind of problems in your life. But obviously, you'd still be at home lying in your bed without desire. Nothing would have happened. So obviously we come a bit to like, what does that mean? What is desire? And if you look, well, maybe look more at your own life. I mean, why'd you come here, right? Because you kind of thought it would be a good idea, and it's like, it could have been, maybe it wasn't onerous, but it could have been like, oh yeah, I gotta make sure I get up at this time and make sure I get my breakfast on so I can get here and I can do this. And when I'm there, I want to meditate. I want to calm my mind. I want to, do these things. So there's a lot of like wanting, so to speak. So you can have this. I mean, you can kind of tell yourself, oh yeah, well that's like, it's like that phrase. It's like the ends justify the means a bit. Like, well, I need desire. It's really bad for me, but I should use it until I'm free. So I think there's maybe a bit of truth to that, but it seems that that's actually, it's maybe being a little too fundamentalist about, like, desire means this thing. But actually, there's different kinds of kind of motivations. Desire can motivate you. So like the Buddha, there's tanha, right? So that's sometimes we translate desire, but more often it's craving, for good reason, because there's this other term, chanda. I think how many people have heard of the word chanda? Heard this? Yeah. Probably most people. That's great. Okay, so maybe what I'm speaking about isn't so novel, but it's still, I think, worth just kind of reminding ourselves. Chanda kind of sometimes get translated as zeal. Zeal is one I saw. Desire, enthusiasm, and they're all kind of trying to hit what this is, but obviously it's something you experience. So if you look into your own mind, you'll see it. It's going on all the time. You kind of, I like that. That's worth it. And I think it's maybe it's a little undersung. I kind of wonder, or we don't give it this like this prominence that I think, to an extent, you can find in the suttas. Like, so for example, the Buddha talks about the four powers. Might be the four great powers. They are Canda, Viriya, Citta, and Vimansa. So these are like people. Okay, here's another. Has anyone heard about these? Has everyone heard about the four powers? Yeah. No. Okay. So these, what first comes, what we find the most in the suttas is when the Buddha. You might have heard these lines where he says, "If Ananda, if I wished, I could live to the end of the age." So some people think that means 120. Some people think that means the Buddha was saying he could live forever. But he could live a long time because he had cultivated these four powers. These powers being these four I just listed, and they translated are Chanda being desire, Viriya being energy, Citta being mind or will, or applying one's mind, and then Vimansa being investigating. So, so they're actually in a list. It's a very important thing, Chanda. It's in one of these main lists, which I believe is part of this kind of Bodhiapakya Dhammas, this kind of group of main lists that we as monks learn, along with like the Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path and all these things. So it's an important list. And so what kind of cues me, like, have you ever met someone, or, who's like, or just someone pertain to something they like, they just go for it. They just like, they get an idea of and they just give it. They just give it everything they have. And I don't know about you, but for me, there's a sense of like, it's kind of inspiring. It's like, wow, they really, I mean, it's inspiring, especially for something wholesome. I mean, but even if it's for like model trains, this can be like, wow, you really went for the model trains, and it's impressive. They have an impressive model train collection, right? They know everything about model trains, and you can't help be a little like, wow, that would have taken a lot of work, to get there, but they did it. And so I think that falls in the realm of Chanda, right? Like, they kind of aspired to something. They're like, model trains, I'm going for, I think it's really good. It's really worthwhile. I'm doing model trains, and they just go. Or anything kind of brought to a really high point, like a craftsman or a mountain climber or an Olympian, right? Even if, I think even a dispassionate person could watch some of the things an Olympian doesn't be like, wow, that's skillful. They did that. So I think the root, I think that pertains to this list. And I think it maybe as, I don't know, sometimes you kind of come up with these theories, but it's like, yeah, maybe as Western Buddhists, there can be a sense of like, oh no, we're not about desire. We're about like equanimity and being peaceful and not doing things and sitting and being, which is, it's not the full picture. And I think that's it goes back to the Buddha's genius. So I think Chanda is actually huge, and it can be, as we know, very inspiring to see someone who just really gets a vision, or they get enthusiastic about something, and they go for it. It's kind of in the realm, but for example, I think it's related. The best course I took. Well, I hope none of my university teachers remember. One of the best courses I took in university, but it might be the best one, was soil science. boring, right? Soil science. It's just soil. But I had this teacher, she was like, every time she talked about soil, her eyes would light up. She was just really into it, right? And it was for everyone. You could tell the whole class. We were like, yeah, this is the best class we have all day. It's soil science. It was great. And I can't help but wonder if that's falling into this kind of, Canda. She really aspired to this. She made energy. This group of qualities, although Chanda being the leader, first one, she really applied herself. She really, I guess, investigated it. It was really infectious. So and that helped us learn, that's for sure. So this comes back to like, in my investigations, what falls in the realm, I guess, of what the Buddha is encouraging. So I remember seeing a sticker. This one kind of epitomized it for me. So if anyone here has been to Toronto, which I'm sure all of us have at some point, GTA, if you've ever ridden the public transit, it's called Go Transit. So they put out an ad, a pamphlet years ago, or it was like their tagline. I don't know if it still is, and it said, "Go for the life you want." Right? That's their thing. Go for the life you want. It shows the train, and it's very catchy, and I couldn't help, this, even then I was already Buddhist at this time, very committed. That is a great sticker. But wait, you're not supposed to want these things. You don't go for life you want. That sounds like, I don't know, like a get rich club kind of motto. Like, you can have the yacht by the sea, or the timeshare, or I don't know. I mean, just vague impressions of you could be rich tomorrow kind of things. But I found that sticker it really stuck in my mind. It stuck in my mind for years. And I actually think there's a lot of support for that. Like the Buddha actually uses that very natural, obvious drive in people in the teachings. So it's kind of like, go for the life you want. Obviously, what kind of life is worth having? But the Buddha was definitely he was a goer. He went for it, right? He had like what some people might really like as a life. He had wealth. He's well off. He was married. He had a loving family. That's even in the very affection with his parents and the rest of his family. And he went for the life he wanted, and he went for it. He went off. He did the go thing, and I don't think we can downplay that. He didn't just go, he didn't to kind of, he obviously didn't say, this is the way it is. I'm married. This is how it is. I'll just accept it, right? So we can use equanimity in the we're not applying it correctly. The Buddha went, this is crazy. I'm going to figure this out. He went for it, right? Tremendous amount of energy. That's, if you read what he talks about himself, he says, I think two qualities helped him. We're kind of always with him on his search and his trying to find enlightenment. Unremitting mindfulness and not being satisfied. Wouldn't let himself just get satisfied with something that wasn't what he was looking for. He wanted to know something that was totally reliable as peace. as happiness, as fulfillment, as being satisfying. And he just, he would not, he wouldn't take no for an answer. If people said, you can't find that, he said, okay, I'm going to go find it. And he went for it, right? So that's kind of where this strikes me. So I think, and if you look at the suttas too, there's even stuff like, as mundane as, he praises lay people who work very hard, and kind of then have wealth to share with others, or just to so that they feel secure and safe. He's not saying, just sit there and find a job that requires as little from you as possible. I mean, he does talk about a few duties, but it's not just making your life kind of easy, I guess. So that has always stuck with me, and I thought it was a good just topic for contemplation. And then you also find that in the suttas, the Buddha was, he was obviously extremely wise, but you get the sense that he was an excellent motivator. He really was able to motivate people, and he would do that in many ways. Sometimes it was very positive, like well, one example sticks out for monks. Sorry, all the lay people here. He says, I think he says, monastic life is like the cream of the milk. It's so great, just which obviously doesn't always feel that way, but sometimes it does. And motivated people for the teachings and to like aspire wholesome aspirations. Yeah, that's kind of. And he didn't, he didn't say, oh, just be. Oh, be moderate in your aspirations. It was like, do you want to end suffering forever? Great, let's do it. Do you want to die unconfused? Okay, here's some. This is what you can do. Do you want, if you believe in rebirth, do you want to be reborn in a blissful heavenly realm that kind of knocks the socks off of everything you've ever experienced in your life? Okay, here you go. You can do it. So I feel, this is very much, I find that a very inspiring thing, sometimes, yeah, Buddha can be presented as the kind of wise sage who says, like, do nothing, just be. But I think he was also really kind of, he was a motivator. And then you also find less, how do I put it, more, less positive images, but ways he would motivate, right? He could talk about just as like a man being dragged to a fire pit by some big mean people, would struggle and try and get out of their grasp and run away. Same thing about, he said, that's kind of that's, or like someone's your head is on fire. That's how one should approach the practice, right? Like, if your head is on fire, you just want to put it out. You do anything in the moment to put it out. You would bash a door down, kick it down if you knew there was water in there. So, or you would, do whatever you needed to put the fire out. So you get the sense that he's really trying to like motivate. And I think it's such an important quality because it's really the beginning of taking up anything, right? Any of these teachings. And it's something, and this is what kind of surprised me about it a bit. was that you can cultivate it. It's a power, it's a quality that can be stronger or weaker. All four of those, right? Your ability to aspire can be Canda, strong or weak. To then put forth energy can be strong or weak, right? Sometimes I really want to do that, and then you just kind of, the energy just doesn't come, and you don't really put yourself into it, and you don't even really see if you got it in the end, right? So these can be strengthened, right? You can strengthen the ability, it's kind of ability to aspire. You can strengthen the ability to put forth energy. You can strengthen the ability to apply your mind to it, and you can strengthen your ability to investigate, to see, did I really get that, right? And it's kind of, like it can seem mundane. Like this is a quality that we use, qualities that we use all the time, like in work, for example, right? You have a project you have to do or deliver on. These all come into play. Generally, that's what you're going to have to use these qualities. So yeah, they can be, and I think you can see. I mean, you might recognize that you're strong in some of them and less strong in others. You might recognize like some other people, like work is a neat area to see that, because you can see like he wanted to do that and he just did it. What? Or they just wanted to, and they just did it. Oh, I wouldn't do that. Or people might really put a lot of effort into something, but not really investigate to see if they actually got what the whole point was, right? What were they trying to get? Yeah, we can take it right to of course, onto any part of the practice. Okay, like here, I like picking these. I like picking broad themes because I can talk about basically anything. So it's my way of kind of giving a rambling talk that seems coherent. So you can apply it to any of the teachings, like generosity, right? For example, when you give to people, does it make you happy, right? Because it really can, right? And it's something you can practice. You might be really generous, but it might not actually lift you up very much, right? And then why is that? Because that's the investigation part. That's the fourth one. I really want to. Yeah, I mean, the Buddha said, it's very, and I've seen that person is like blissed out, and then, okay, so what should I do? And then you make energy, right? You kind of, okay, well, maybe in this case, the Buddha says, someone, when you're giving, you should feel uplifted at the thought of giving, right? When you're just planning it, kind of joyful and uplifted as you're giving it, and when you remember it, you can feel, that was great, right? So you can actually take that as like a practice, right? Like, or you can just reflect on some generosity you did. Like, did that make me happy? Did I really get to enjoy that before it happened? Did I enjoy it as I was doing it? And and did I enjoy it when it was done? And this can be kind of neat because you can apply it to even hard work. That's for a good purpose, right? Because sometimes you just kind of put in a lot of work, and then we only really get the joy at the end when we get to like reflect back. It was like, well, that was rough, but it's good I did that. And that's fair enough. I mean, of course you wouldn't want to knock that, but it's like, what if you could like enjoy it as you were doing it? Or enjoy just the thought of, I could do that. That could be really helpful. And it kind of brings up, and the neat thing about Canda then too is, and this idea of enthusiasm for, and the other three is is you can kind of ask, so like, what sets that apart from tanha, right? Craving. And what came to my mind is like Luang Por Liam, I think you all know who Luang Por Liam is. He's Ajahn Chah's successor, kind of at Wat Pah Pong. And he really enjoys construction. And he's 82, 83, and he still gets up really early in the morning and meets with people, but eventually goes to the job site, will work 8-hour days, has more energy than his upataks who are in their 20s. He's astounding. And, in one of his talks, he's just kind of, you do it because it's kind of right to do. It's helpful. It's to kind of make these spaces so people can practice. It's a service. You do it without thinking about what you're kind of craving for this accomplishment. It's more like you kind of give yourself to the work, right? The work becomes, you kind of lose your selfishness about it. You're just doing it because, like you're building a beautiful bench, for example, for the sake of people sitting on it. You do it well because it feels right? You're going to build a bench, building a good bench, right? People can use that bench. So I think that's kind of tied in, right? You have this aspiration to make a nice bench for people to use. And if you finish the bench and it's actually kind of a junky bench, say, and it breaks down and it's kind of a junk in a year, you can't take a lot of joy out of that. But if you kind of lose yourself to it, you kind of, all 4 of those qualities are there. And at the end, you have this excellent bench that people can sit on. This is just an example, or a building. Let's say if Luang Por Liam's working on a project. This kind of, that's kind of in line with what's wholesome. So, if I'm not losing my thread too much, so we can apply it. This being generous is one example. You can also apply it to really anything, and that's why my sense is that's why it's one of these fundamental lists, right? Like, if you want to give up smoking, right? The 5th precept, drinking, let's say. These 4 qualities would be things you would rely, you would come up in your mind, right? Aspiring to give it up, making energy, applying your mind, kind of sustain that effort, and seeing if you've actually done it. So it's a nice thing to contemplate, because it's kind of, it, right? We use this is life. This is what we do a lot. But when you've it's kind of the great part of the teachings, they kind of make things more potent, because you can actually kind of, that's what's going on, and I can deepen that. And so kind of that, and you can kind of use it to go for like the sticker, go for enlightenment, or go for the kind of wholesome life that you want. Maybe that's the caveat. Go for the wholesome life you want, and you can apply this even, like in a Buddhist sense. You can apply it anywhere. You could apply it in your early 20s, right? This is the kind of life I want. You could go for it, right? You could apply it even at the end of your life, or I'd really like to not be a mess when I'm sick, right? I really don't want to be a grump. Or as I get older, I really don't want to, I want to be joyful still. So how am I going to do that, right? It's like, how are you going to do that? So you've kind of So you can set a very strong aspiration. Okay. And kind of you can see that by the strength of your aspiration will determine likely how successful you can be, right? Just as like a kid saying, I want to be an astronaut, right? If it's just like, I want to be an astronaut, great, but you hear about these kids, because I read, I want to be an astronaut, and they just start, from that moment on, they're obsessed, and 40 years later, they're an astronaut, right? So in the same thing, like I want to, I want to, I want to, I want to, I want to die well. How am I going to do that? And then you can invest, am I at the point that I could do that if I had this or that? No. Or yeah, okay, so what do I need to cultivate? Okay, those are the kinds of things to cultivate, or I don't know. And then you investigate. So where is, how can I find that out? Which I mean, at least from, like in the Buddhist teachings, for example, he talks about, bhavana can lead to that. Metta, the quality of metta. It's one of the 11 benefits that one dies unconfused, I think is the translation I've read. And so you can, you can kind of, that's why I find it so wonderful, because it really isn't, it's not just about like, I want a Ferrari, or wanting in itself, aspiring is totally not a bad thing, right? It's an excellent thing. I think the Buddha was really trying to, he was trying to motivate people like, well, why settle for that? Why not? Why settle for being kind of humdrum life? Why settle for that? Like, why? If you kind of take on the cosmology, then, but he would say, like, why settle for like why not aspire to be born in a high heaven, right? In the early cosmology, like, why not? Sounds great, like, obviously there's the wisdom part, right? You're not going to make that the point of your spiritual life, because even he taught those places, those kind of existences aren't going to fulfill you ultimately. But why not aspire to really good relations with your family, or friends, or certain types of friendships? It's like, and I think the important thing too is that, I think we can all realize that sometimes we can feel like, I can't do it. Like, there's no way. I know this is impossible. But if the desire is wholesome, I think it's nice to check in sometimes and be like, do I really know that? Or do I just think that's the case? Because, I haven't been able to yet, and I don't really have the skills, or I don't really know what to do, or it's very confusing. But if you sustain the desire, even though it can lead to frustration, right? Because you're kind of like, well, I've been working on this for whatever, and I still don't have it. It's like, well, okay, like that desire itself can still lead you there, right? The Buddha, after 6 years, the Buddha's a great example in most anything. 6 years of asceticism, he didn't just like, forget it. I tried for 6 years. You can't do this. He just, okay, I really got to take a new look at this. What would work, right? He didn't just throw in the towel. So that's why I think like it's like a really Buddhist kind of quality. It's a really Buddhist kind of teaching. It's like, if you can think of something wholesome that you want to do, go for it. Just give it everything you got. What else is there to do? So that's why that sticker always stuck with me. Go for the life you want. It's like, yeah, why not? or you cannot, right? And then you won't have it. So yeah, I think it's a really great teaching, and a nice counterpoint, yeah, to the kind of teaching, like the idea of equanimity, right? Yeah, like, which is kind of the one of the peak, most important qualities the Buddha's taught, right? But and even then you can say, okay, well, how do I become so equanimous? You got to aspire. You got to have like a really strong aspiration. I'd really like to be that equanimous. Great. So then you give it. So yeah, so it's also fun to see how all these qualities and teachings fit together. But yeah, this list, which I do hope, I was sitting here, oh geez, do I have the Pali right? But I think it's the Chattaro Mahabalas, the great powers, the 4 great powers, or maybe it's just the 4 powers. But those are them. It's a list that comes up multiple times in the teachings. It's one of the kind of core lists. It's very short. It's sweet, and yeah, it can help us develop, yeah, a lot of all the other great qualities in a way. So something worth checking out, and just kind of investigating the truth of that relationship. Is that like a real kind of, is what I'm saying or reflecting on accurate? Is that a wholesome thing? And yeah, so just reflecting on like, why does that inspire us? Because it is kind of this amazing thing that people can aspire to things and go for it. So I think I just finished on time, which I hadn't aspired to, but so much, but I'm glad I did. So actually I thought, I finished on the usual time. There's time set aside for walking meditation, but we can do some Q&A. Maybe the walking will have to be a little shorter, but I think that'll be fine. Sadhu, 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 anumodami. Yeah, Jamie.
I have a question. So the generosity one is really interesting because it is true that, but like when I think about, the needs of others, and so maybe I'm generous and I make donations for people who are having through floods or whatever. But I often don't get that much joy because I think, well, that's maybe not enough. There's always the feeling that like I could do more, maybe I should do more, and not really finding the joy because of the doubt about whether that's enough or whether, I don't know, yeah. So it's funny how my mind can get in the way of actually experiencing that joy when I'm giving. And I don't know if you have any suggestions there.
Yeah, I think it's a common kind of state of people's psyche, especially in our society. Yeah, I ran one thing I tried doing. I think it's natural enough, and it seems to me that it speaks in part to the kind of, oh right, this is something we train in. It's like a skill, right? That even though obviously we were inspired by giving, it actually may have, we can actually get better at it, right? So we may have some skill in it, so to speak, or aptitude in being happy from giving, but we can improve it, so I would I think that's why, like I was thinking, sometimes you can adopt a kid kind of with their schooling, let's say, and you get pictures. People, you've seen this, and so I'm getting to answer your question, but just so not saying you should do that, what I make a point is that it seems to be kind of uplifting, right? That you put these pictures on your fridge, and oh wow, you know, this little girl or this little boy is going to school because of me or my parents. You know, I've never done it, but I've seen other people do it. And, wow, that's great, and I think it lifts them up. So my point is that sometimes I think you have to kind of bring the mind in. So, for example, if you're giving, I don't know, $30 for aid relief for flooding, and that's all you know about it, right? I think it's probably safe to, even beforehand, like, what would $30 do to flood disaster relief? You know, or you could read their website and, you know, try and connect with what you're about to do, what it might, you know. So $30 for, you know, flood relief could be like, this could buy 2 blankets for people who are cold. You know, they just got out of their kind of, the possessions are gone, their house is a mess, and now they're in some temporary shelter, but 2 nice blankets, they're going to be warm. You can, you know, so you can connect with that, and yeah. Obviously, the more you know, actually accurately what's going to happen is probably helpful. But and I think that's why, for example, this isn't a plug, but when I was a layperson, I always found, you know, I could like you could give yeah, like you could drop some food in a food bank donation bin, right, at the grocery store, and that's nice. But so let's say I put a bag of I don't know, Cheerios, or a box of Cheerios in that. Or like imagine if you kind of, I don't know, somehow knew some people who were tight on ends meet, and you kind of, you know, they hadn't eaten breakfast and you brought over a box of Cheerios, right? It's going to be night and day, you know. That second one is going to blow your mind, right? You're going to feel so good about the day, having given these people this box of Cheerios. The kid, he's going to have energy for school, and, you know, they don't feel so stressed anymore, and you know what I mean? Like, so, and also, so as a layman, you know, like I would, like I would donate to like the monastery, and that was nice, but like if I could, you know, put something in a monk's bowl, like into the bowl when they were there, right? It was like 10 times better, way better. And that's actually in the Suttas. The Buddha talks about someone who's like a kind of pro at giving, and they give with their own hand, right? It's not disconnected, right? Like, and it's we might, you could have this like, yeah, but it's kind of selfish just because you want to be there. But like, well, that's just how humans' minds just work this way, right? If I, giving with your own hand is like, it's like a whole nother thing. You know, just to kind of drive the point home, like give $30 to flood relief, right? I hope it helps someone. And then like, what if we could just transport you there with 2 blankets, and you meet the people, and you could put the blanket over their shoulder, you know, their coat, and you put it over their shoulder. You know, it's like your day would be, you'd have a great week, right? So I think I was really blown away when I read that in the Suttas about kind of a master of giving. They kind of give wholeheartedly. They have confidence in what they're giving. They give with their own hand. They give confident that it's going to help, you know, the person, confident that's a good thing to do, you know, just the goodness of the act. So all those together, that's my sense of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like there's a bit of a motivation for the generosity.
Yeah.
In that you're looking maybe at some kind of good feeling in yourself. How do you square that with the Christian perspective of give with one hand and the other hand doesn't know what you're doing?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, is there, do you know what the quote is?
Something, give with your left hand when your right hand doesn't know that you're doing it.
Yeah.
They kind of seem somewhat at odds. I mean, you don't really have the motivation whenever you're giving just for the fact that you know it's a good thing to do, but not expecting anything in return.
Well, yeah, and I think that was the whole truth, not expecting anything in return. You know, you give.
But not necessarily material.
The joy.
Feeling something, you know.
Yeah.
If it comes, right?
Right.
But is that your motivation?
I guess.
Yeah, well, I wish you were asking a wiser person. But my sense of it is, I mean, there's kind of the Sutta answer, right? Which is, there's different reasons for giving. The Buddha outlines them, and they're not all equal, right? Like if you give because, you could give thinking, I'll get something from this person, or I should because everyone's looking. You know what I mean? But I guess the overall answer I think I can give is it's like okay, but from that utilitarian perspective, if giving made you feel great, and then you did it way more often, which is better, like giving and never thinking you should feel good, or what if you can make it feel good, and that made you want to do it more often?
There's nothing wrong with
That's right, yeah.
With the feeling that you might get out of it.
Yeah.
But giving, I think giving without any expectation of anything in return is pure. Don't you think?
I think, how do I put this? I see what you're getting at. That. Yeah, it's hard for me to, I don't know how to put it into words, but obviously, you're giving without expecting anything in return. I guess I don't know if I can directly answer, but it seems to me that it's more like the joy comes in the giving. It's not like the next thing. It's like it's joyful right then, and it feels good right then, and it will be a better gift, because the person, I guess because if I just kind of, if you had a sniffle and I just went, it's like, but if I kind of, oh, are you okay? Do you want some? It's like, that's going to make you feel a lot better. So I guess it seems to me that I think it's that perspective that you mentioned is too narrow. Maybe that's the way I can think it, right? It's too idealistic, and because it doesn't take into account the realism of how all of our hearts and minds work, we miss the grounds for the best parts of it, right? Because the best parts of it come out of a real relationship, real emotions, right? Like it shouldn't, with the example maybe of sending money abroad, a party, well, it shouldn't matter whether I give it to them myself or I send $30. It does. Somehow it does. And it's funny too, because it would actually matter to that other person, right? Like if obviously they'll be grateful, but if you could just show up and give, instead of some distribution center handing out blankets, you get real people there giving them blankets, that's going to be a different thing. Yeah.
That's such an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Give without expectation. I guess my reflection on that is that if you keep it on the material realm, give without there being any material benefit to you. But when it comes to like a greater human spiritual realm, I'm just wondering if really you have to look at it from the perspective of energy and everything you do in life has ripples. There's a ripple effect of anything you do, whether it's harmful or helpful or whatever. And motivation, of course, is the most important. But so, and never underestimate, whatever, you just can't know the effect.
Yeah.
And it's all, I think a lot of charities do say, this amount of money will buy, a school lunches for a year for 2 kids.
Yeah.
This amount will build latrines in a village or something.
Yeah.
But in truth, you just have to have a trust that when you do something generous, it's going to have good consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you, I hate to say it, but there's a lot of people now homeless and who knows what else. They're addicted. They're standing at certain street lights and they're begging, right? So my thought is always, well, if I give them money, they're just going to, shoot up or drink something. So my sister-in-law, she carries nut bars, in her car. She says, "We hungry? Would you like one of these?" I thought, well, there you go. Somebody figured out a way to be helpful without having to worry that it's going to have negative effects.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can all do that. We can all become creative and figure out without getting too worried about, is it enough,
Yeah.
It's probably never enough. Any one person can do it? How can that possibly be enough?
Yeah.
So.
Yes, I do. Yeah, skill in giving, right? It's like something you can be wise about it. And that's another.
So a king, one of the great kings of the time in the Buddha's time, comes to him and says, "Where should I give?" The king, right, comes to you and says, you're the leader of a spiritual community. Where should I give, right? And you could say, "Oh, give to us. We got it." And the Buddha immediately says, "Give where you feel confident." Right? Where do you feel that makes you feel confident this is a good thing to give to? That's where you give, right? Where your heart kind of gets pulled up. But I think, doing it properly is the other part of it.
So just, last time you were here, you talked a little bit about this
bringing to mind your good deeds.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing about also noticing how generosity, it's kind of similar in a way to noticing how generosity can affect your heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think that we kind of live in a culture where doubt sometimes pulls that away, right? We're so like, oh, did I do it? Did I? Maybe I should have, and so then we lose the impact of our good deeds, our generosity, because of this kind of thinking, the analytical, measure it up, and and so I thought quite a bit about that after the last Dhamma, about why it's so difficult to kind of let yourself focus on the good in each of us and what we do. And I think it's a good thing to contemplate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's especially, like as a monk, in some ways you're like, I can't give as much as I used to.
Right.
It's like a little frustration.
That monk's like, I can't cook for anybody anymore. And it's, and that kind of idea, that joy, and you can see, the thing is, I can give a talk and whatever, but sometimes you see people doing it, right? And they do it really well. They give, and it makes them uplifted, it uplifts the other person, and it's like, this is totally possible. I might not, you might not exactly see how to get there, but it's doable. Yeah.
I think what you said, it is a skill into itself.
Yeah.
The ability to let the thinking mind, the doubting mind, set it down and just feel, the positive part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what I mentioned before. The Buddha saying, beforehand one contemplates, and it uplifts one when you're doing it, and then after. So beforehand, it can be helpful, can really clarify. It's helpful. You can kind of cut the doubts off before they start. Like, why am I doing this? Because it will lead to that, or you're guessing, but will it? Yeah. Yeah, this is confident, right? Where do you give where you're confident? It's like, yeah, this really will. This will help. This is, and even like you can in our society, right? The flood example, right? Like, well, even if they get a blanket, where they're going to sleep, and there's so many people, and there's hunger problems, and it's like, so that's why sometimes I find that's kind of where you bring it back to just real, but like, if that was me, and someone gave me a blanket, how would I feel? Yeah, I've been on an out trip before, right? I come back, I'm cold. Someone gives me a blanket, I feel great. And oh yeah, okay, well, let's just keep it there, right? You just keep it there. And that's why I also think, like, there's a lot of skill in doing it with your own hand, because you don't have to kind of go into these imagined things, right? It's like, person on the street, granola bar, here you go. Without a doubt, that person has a granola bar now that they didn't have, and they get to eat it, right? And you had this exchange, and you can tell me by their expression whether they were just like, oh, I don't need this, or, oh, wow, I really needed this granola bar, right? So you can't, it's undoubtable confidence. I think maybe that's the other part of it, this kind of sense of confidence in it. Yeah.
Well, we heard about his sister-in-law, so I can talk about my brother-in-law. Around Christmas, he used to go to the mission. There'd be a long lineup of underprivileged people, let's say, waiting for a free meal, and he'd take a pile of $5 bills, and he'd go through the line and hand out $5 bills. And obviously that, and he told me about it, I guess, so obviously that was giving him great joy. But I think there's an interesting insight, because I know my brother-in-law, and I know that he craves some kind of recognition.
Oh,
okay. So it's a beautiful act, and in a way, but, sometimes recipients don't actually feel, that's wonderful. I'm so appreciative of this rich person doing something for me.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's a little different, right?
yeah.
But anyway, I think the guys liked it. He had a good time, but underlying it, I think, was a craving, for recognition. Yeah. And so it reminds me of some reading I've done from Ven Sirimedho, and I think it's not just him, but the way he put it, it really registered with me. And he started talking about the Noble Truths, and he emphasized the idea that it's not the cause of suffering is not desire. He said it's attachment to desire. Mm. So maybe that's part of the giving thing, that sure, you desire recognition, you desire to feel good about yourself, and then so you can do the act, and then you let go, I guess. It doesn't come out of attachment, or the desire is there, but it doesn't become a real craving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it points to
kind of, you let go of you do your best with the outcome, but you really aren't in charge, right? Yeah, the outcome is what it's going to be.
But you're not even in charge with how you feel.
In part, yeah. I mean, I think you can, and that's why I think that's why the Buddha talks about it, because you can't, you can get better at it, right? Like you could start coming more from that place, right? And then it could actually have such an impact that maybe that wears down, right? And you actually just, you end up doing it more from a place of, and you might get better at it, right? Like maybe $5 isn't, what's the appropriate, what's needed, what would be really helpful for someone. Yeah. But yeah, I think that was just, it's kind of one example because it's of the kind of really wholesome desires, right? Wanting, it's a totally wholesome desire to want to be very generous and feel uplifted by the beauty of that generosity. Let's say to connect with that beauty, right? It's a wholesome thing because it will make, if it's so delightful, you're going to want to keep doing it, right? I mean, you're not going to, within your means, but, humans were, and it's not like we like pleasure. That's just how, it's just how it is. And there are pleasures that are totally wholesome, and that's kind of part of this. There are things worth aspiring to, pleasures worth seeking, like meditative pleasures, wholesome, of ethics, of feeling uplifted about one's actions. These are things worth pursuing.
I would think as a monk, one of if I projected, myself into that position, I would think the attachments to desire would be the desire to become enlightened. I mean, I would think one would have to struggle with that.
Well, that's why it's like,
we're working with language, right? Like Ajahn Sumedho, I think, is also, like if you look at the suttas, you see it's tanha is the cause of dukkha, right? Generally meaning craving, thirst. Ajahn Sumedho is kind of playing with it, but because he's trying to get at something, right? It's like, and I think even when we talk about desires, it's just like the movement, the pull or push or movement towards something is not always unwholesome, right? It can be extremely wholesome. It's the type of desire, let's say, or what it is. So that's why, like, when people translate Canda, it's kind of zeal, desire, enthusiasm. It's like, what? It's hard to kind of put your mind on it. But it's there. It's these are just words. There's real experiences, and you can really see this. Might be a little tricky to explain, but you can experience these things. So in terms of wanting to be enlightened, it's like, yeah, for sure. Even that desire, yeah, you have to give up. At some point, you have to give up, but it's like, I don't know. If you said, I want to go to the top of a mountain and enjoy the view, first you have to get to the top of the mountain, right? So don't try and, you could try and join it, but you got to get there to do this. So you have to use desire for the end of it, or you have to purify desire of its unwholesomeness to just make it a pure aspiration for something very wholesome.
Isn't the desire for enlightenment a wholesome desire?
Very, yeah, that's the thing. But even then, I mean, you do, yeah, you do. It's very, very wholesome. Yeah. So as a monk, well, not as anyone, you have to use it well. That's kind of the point, like Chanda, you want a lot of Chanda, you want to encourage Chanda, you want to not give up on your desire to be free, you want to encourage your desire to be free, you want to,
I like the word you use,
Yeah.
enthusiasm.
Yeah.
That's a terrific word.
Yeah.
Obsession.
Yeah, that's right.
Compulsion.
That's right. Yeah. You're enthusiastic, you're kind of uplifted in that direction. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
I have to try more of that.
Yeah. And that was kind of the nub of the talk, is because you can kind of see like, I don't know, I'm borrowing this from another lay teacher. If you went to the gym and you were just like, oh, I just want to be fit, you'll probably just end up being fit. If you went to the gym and you said, I want to be super strong and look like a bodybuilder, the only way that's going to happen is if you desire it to be so, right? You're not just going to accidentally get there. So to reach enlightenment, you're not just going to stumble upon it. You're going to, likely, you're really going to have to set an intention and be enthusiastic and go for it. And anything else. Yeah. Okay, so that was very interesting. So it's 2:00 now. Yeah, thanks for all the questions. I hope I was clear enough. It's interesting stuff to tease out, but you can see like it's obviously what you're just trying to do is talk about reality, right? We can experience these things, and you're trying to highlight certain relationships that are real, that we can really live viscerally. Okay, so that being said, it's 2:00 now. I think we start closing at 2:15. Is that right?
We close at 3.
Oh, right. So the walking meditation usually begins already, and it ends at what time?
2:30.
2:30. Okay. Okay. So we've got a half an hour walking meditation to just kind of let that sink in, and we'll come back at 2:30 and close up. Yeah. All right.